everybody, it's Queen of Light 1111 and welcome back to Step Into the Light with Queen of Light and
Sunayna.
Hey everybody, so glad to be sitting here with Sunayna today for a very, very special episode about the closing of 2020.
How crazy was this year, guys?
I know. It was so, I think it was the most profound year.
It was the most transformative year,
right?
For a lot of people.
It was also a very scary year
in so many ways,
right? And it was probably the most, I don't even know how to say this, like the most deepening of connections I feel like has occurred. So I guess back to the transformation, right? I just feel like connections that were not serving were really, really being addressed this year, as well as the connections that needed to be nurtured.
Oh yeah.
So it was huge. So I mean, you know, obviously you and I spent a lot of time together, but. And I think that as we go through our lives and as we've gone through this year together, we've had a lot of conversations about what's happened, right, in 2020.
So many.
But just as a recap, okay, as a recap today, you know, we're sitting here, it's the end of December, and if we look back, I always like to say, first of all, what am I grateful for before I get into, like, what was the shit show? What was the shit show that was 2020, right?
Well, in a way,
so let's talk about what,
in a way, I'm grateful for the shit show that went on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I have matured so much this year because of everything that's happened, and I just feel like I've become a different person this year.
I can totally see that in you. I could totally see that in you. I think, like, we started this podcast, right?
Yeah.
We started working together. But I think even before then, you were just really, you've always been super confident, but there was this year where you were kind of, like, unsure where to put that confidence.
True.
Like, where to apply it.
True.
And I think that as things shifted, you went through a lot to then rise like this phoenix that you are today. Do you know what I mean?
It does feel like that.
Right? So what were you grateful for aside that the 2020 was a great experience? Like something specific without getting into, you know, too much detail that would be uncomfortable.
Well, okay, I'm grateful that the childhood wounds that I've had for such a long time, they've kind of healed this year through everything that I've been through.
Mm-hmm. And so these were wounds, and I don't know if, like, we can use wound, but I want to make sure that we're not looking at it as a derogatory, right? Because it's a trigger. I think if we view it as a trigger, which then yes, of course, it creates whatever it creates, which people then will call a wound. Right?
Right.
So when you go through this trigger and you've been triggered, it's really triggering you for your strength. It's triggering you for your understanding. So it's not necessarily like a wound that's going to bring you down.
I was just going to say.
It's an experience to help you rise.
Yeah.
So as you have gone through your experiences, these triggers have morphed you into the person that you are today. Why? Because you have the maturity, the spiritual maturity, to now address this in a way to heal it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about this transformation of you, like without, again, getting into too much specifics, like how did you develop your confidence from what you went through? And just give us a little bit about what it is that you were experiencing. And I think you can call it stifled. Right. Maybe you felt a little stifled.
Yep.
Trying to find your voice. So I don't want to speak for you and stifle you. Yeah. So you say.
Like you said, this was something that I always felt was bringing me down. Like literally my whole life, this one thing was just bringing me down.
Mm-hmm. But you have respect for your journey, right?
Yeah.
You have so much respect for your journey and that experience that you can sit here today and just be like, gosh, you know what? I'm okay.
I think it's definitely a blessing to have been able to overcome those things that I felt brought me down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it really started to, because you were not able to manage it in a way that you understood it, your body was then kind of knocking through different physical symptoms because you were not addressing the trigger. And so when you don't address the trigger, you will have things like heart palpitations, dizziness, mood swings, other types of issues that would happen because your body is not in alignment, right?
That's
so you were experiencing these things, and you went to all of these appointments, you had all of this blood work done, and it turns out that you were, thank God, knock on wood, like physically okay. And so then that gives you peace of mind to now address the issue.
My anxiety was the worst that it has ever been this year.
Yeah.
Because of like because of the shit show of 2020 basically.
Yeah.
But you know, like I was able to overcome that, and now I can say that I'm stronger than I've ever been in my whole life.
Mm-hmm. This is a life lesson.
Yeah,
to now take you through the next several years of your life until the next lesson, because you're a student of life. We are all students of life, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to a certain age and all of a sudden like, oh, I got it, I know exactly what's going to happen, because then, you know, the universe is going to throw you another like curveball and you're going to be like, whoa, what was that, and how do I deal with it?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, for you, just watching you and being there for you through this year, you know, just when someone is trying to find their voice and their stability and their independence, right? And then you have COVID on top of it, that now a ghost disease is now taking away your freedom.
I know.
Okay, so not only do you feel like you're trying to find your way through life, but now you're being told you can't go out, you can't go to university, you can't go shopping, you can't get your nails done. Like, and then you're feeling even more.
Yeah.
And I really do feel like all of this was a very, very unfortunate. But for those of you who have been able to address it and really get to the core of it and work through it, now if you sit back and you, like, do you sit back now and you're like, hey, I can get through a lot now?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I sit back and I'm like, if I could get through that, I could get through anything.
Yeah. And that's been huge. That's been huge.
Huge.
So I think the good thing to note is with this year for you specifically, right? Like, what's your like life lesson? Like, so you go through this lesson of, you know, finding who you are and not being told who you are.
Honestly,
like, what's your lesson for people out there? Like, that anyone that might be listening that's suffering or dealing with that.
I think my lesson is, if you feel like somebody's bringing you down, you have to speak your truth. You have to. And I know that it's scary, but you have to do it. It's going to happen sooner or later, or it's just going to keep bringing you down. And nothing's going to change if you don't take the initiative to change it.
Good. You have to find your strength, your inner strength, to be able to do that.
Exactly.
How does someone find their inner strength? How did you find your inner strength?
You can't play the waiting game. You can't just wait for things to change, first of all. Because sometimes you're like, okay, maybe if I just leave it alone, things will get better and I won't have to do anything. But a lot of times that's not the case.
That's procrastination.
You can't procrastinate.
Right.
You have to just do it. You just have to take the initiative to change things you want. Mm-hmm. Be the change you want to see in your own life.
Right. Exactly. It's hard for people, right? So whether it's someone that needs to stand up to a boss or an authority figure or whatever, it's difficult to try to find that strength to do it if you're in a place of feeling intimidated or that you have less power. If you come from a place of here's the thing that, like, if you recall when we were talking about this, it's about, first you have to understand their perspective. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to go in, sometimes you have to be the one that's knowledgeable about both parts, right?
True.
So when you go in with intelligence and understanding, that's how you gain your power. To understand how to address the issue. So if you recall, we would talk about how do you understand the other person's point of view so that you can address it from a place of knowledge rather than sheer emotion.
That's so true.
So do you remember we went through that, right?
Yes.
So when you go through that experience of, all right, well, what's their perspective? If I'm in their shoes, what are they thinking? How are they, what's their position? Why are they acting? If you take the time to understand someone else, you're not only understanding yourself, but you're putting yourself in a better position to communicate. And that is taking your power.
Right.
And that's when you can then assert your balance in that connection.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense.
And that's what
it's
works.
so easy to just be crippled by our own fear.
Right.
To just not be able to open your mouth and say something.
Right.
But if you rationalize and you know how to talk to the other person with intelligence rather than fear, then you're going to get somewhere.
Right. Because what's fear? Fear's ego.
Right.
When you drop the ego and you go from a place of logic, rational understanding, in alignment with your intuition and your higher self, then you have compassion. You can operate in compassion and forgiveness and understanding. And when you have compassion, forgiveness, and understanding, that is a recipe for success in mending connections.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's wonderful. I think that's awesome. And now you take this platform and you thrive.
Yep.
So that was huge.
What about you?
So I know. So this year for me has been, personally transformative in a lot of different ways. So for me, I just feel like I did a lot of house cleaning spiritually and in connections this year, you know? And so, I'm like loyal to a fault. I feel like that's kind of my issue, is like once I'm super loyal to somebody, I'm like always loyal to them. Yeah. But sometimes you have to take a step back and say, why am I being loyal? Am I being loyal because I've known this person forever? Am I being loyal because, I want to avoid cutting this connection out, even though it's not serving me and it's bringing my vibration down? And so I did a lot of like introspection. And as I was connecting with individuals, I was like, for me, it was a big energy check for me this year. How do I feel when I'm interacting with people? If I feel good about it most days, because some days you're with people and it's just like, oh my God, it was draining. But it's like people having a bad day. That stuff happens. Yeah. So it's not the one-off. If it is a repetitive energy that is constantly bringing the vibe down, or that it is not in alignment with who you are, that's what I was looking at. And I was looking at repetitive behavior. And even in myself, like, hey, if I'm talking to that person and I'm naturally high vibe, but when I talk to that person, I kind of go into the shadow. Like, why am I doing that? Because that's not who I am. I'm trying to adapt by becoming, oh yeah, woe is me too, but that's not who I am. So I would look at those connections. I'm like, why am I connecting? And I'm a healer. So healers automatically attract people that need healing too, right? And so I'm like that, and I'm definitely in the energy where I want to be available and friends with those people, but I cannot necessarily have it where it starts to bring me into that energy where it keeps me from helping people, right? Because if they want to stay there, that is their free will and choice. But my free will and choice is, I can love you from a distance, but I don't necessarily need to have you in my life. Wow. So for me, I had like two very significant connections. One, which was a connection with a person that I had for decades that, I was like, I knew for a very long time. And I had to eliminate that connection because that person was very self-involved and it was always a lower vibration. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but if you don't want to rise above and heal your wound, and if I'm trying to help or whatever, and if you're not trying to help yourself, it's just like, I wish you well, right? Wow. So with that friend, I had to step away. And I stepped away in peace because I've tried to do this before with this person, but it was always a little bit of a battle, and then people would walk away feeling bad. But this time it was like, I'm an awakened person, you're an awakened person. We are mature, we've grown apart, and we are no longer in alignment. So I wish you well, I will always wish you well, and it was that sort of detachment. So it felt really good to end that connection in that way. And then with the other person, you know, it was a very similar. It was like this constant wanting to be upset at everybody and the world, and but not wanting to get out of that. And so again, it was just a pull back, and it was a transition away. And both who I will continue to love dearly, but as experiences and part of the tribe when we were in a cycle, but I just feel like that's over. But I think what's interesting is as I started cleaning up, as I started kind of cleaning up the energy field of these connections, it's interesting then that people come to you then to clear the karma that maybe they had unresolved with you. So I had a real significant experience that as I was clearing and creating space for my continued journey, right, from a place where I wanted to like have my tribe, I was bringing in, I guess, attracting in energy where people had karma with me that maybe they felt really bad about what they did to me in the past. And so out of the blue one day, I got this call at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning, and I was like, what the hell? And right away I knew what number it was when I saw the phone number, and I was like, oh my God. And it was like, and if I was not at home, I wouldn't have answered it. But I happened to be at home and alone, and I answered the phone. And it was this person who I had a very, very significant connection with. And I would say that this person in the term of the spiritual journey was a karmic partner.
Very strong karmic partner.
Very strong karmic partner. And it was, a very, very difficult relationship that I had trouble releasing, and that person had trouble releasing me. But ultimately, thank God, as I grew and I just detached.
Yeah.
But there was never really this resolution. As many times as we tried to resolve this to walk away peacefully, it was difficult. So anyway, the call came, and the person basically was in tears.
Wow.
And I hadn't heard from this person in, I don't know, maybe 5 years. And the person basically said, I just want you to know that I'm very sorry that things didn't work out, that I hope that you know that I loved you, I still love you, blah, all this stuff. And I was just like stunned.
Oh my God.
I was stunned. I was kind of like, okay. But what the interesting thing was, for this person I had spent decades with, right, in a connection, I felt nothing. And when I was in that connection, it was so tragic and devastating, and I had all these emotions. But thank God I had healed so much of it that when the karma finally came to close, it was literally, for me, over.
Wow.
It was like, wow, everything has come full circle in that karmic connection, and I'm over it. And I was like, whoa.
Amazing.
So it was really good. So for this year, for me, the transformation really has been to get to a place where that I mostly want to have vibrational alignment in my connections.
Yeah.
So so I just feel like that has been the most. And then also a deepening of connections, of my existing connections. So as I have released people that haven't been in alignment, the ones that have been in alignment, those connections are becoming so much more significant and deeper. And you start to realize how some of those other connections start to affect the connections that are aligned. I
can really relate to that right now, too.
Because when you have people that are like woe is me, all of this stuff, and then you deal with your connections that are in alignment, you're bringing some of that energy, and it starts to seep in and affect your other connections.
That's so true.
Right?
Actually, when you were telling me about your friend that you were close to for so long, and then all of a sudden you feel like their energy doesn't align with yours, I can relate to that right now too.
Yeah.
Actually, kind of recently I've been kind of feeling like this. A couple of friends of mine who I've been close to literally
your whole life.
My whole life. Recently I've been feeling like they don't really align with my energy. Because, like you said, you know, sometimes when you talk to this person, you just feel like they're always negative and they're always in kind of the woe is me mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can try to help them as much as you can. But
Mm-hmm.
after, you know, a certain extent, you can't really do anything,
Yeah.
and you can tell that they don't want to help themselves either.
Right.
So
This is why I always say you're not their Jesus.
Right.
You're not their savior. You can
just-
try as much as you
yeah.
can. Mhm.
It just feels like they're kind of energy vampires at this point.
Yes, it
And
becomes
so,
a drain.
I mean, you know, I still have love for them, but, you know, you can't let people bring you down.
Right.
So you have to set that healthy boundary, like
Right.
we've talked about in our past episodes.
Exactly. It's interesting, and I also feel like a lot of it has to do with spiritual maturity.
Yes. Yeah.
Emotional maturity. And as people become more emotionally mature and aware and spiritually mature and ascended, I do
Uh-huh.
feel like they get really aware of their own energy and how their energy is affected when they're dealing with anybody.
Mhm.
Right? Even the existing people in their life. And then you'll start to feel that drift,
Yeah.
you know? So I do feel like a lot of relationships this year have been transformed for us specifically,
Yes.
right? So ones that we've released and ones that we've brought in. And that's also the amazing thing, right? It's like the people that have been released that we've sent off with love.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this new soul tribe members come in and that start to
True.
match your alignment. And
That's
it's
so
just like, it
true.
feels so wonderful. So it's not like God's like, okay, you're going to be a loner for the rest of your life now that you've cut off all these people or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's like then you created space for new energy to
I'm
come
so
in.
grateful for that.
Me too. So aside from transformation and connections, what other changes or cycles maybe that have closed in 2020 have we experienced, or do you think that has happened?
I think that because of everything that I've been through this year, you know, I was looking for ways to cope with, you know, my own emotions.
Mhm.
And I've always had this really creative side that I never really exercised like I wanted to, but now, you know, I was able to turn those negative emotions into something creative, and I've been writing more music. Like this year
You're
was
more
the first
inspired.
year that I've been more inspired. I've been able to write songs like never before.
Yeah.
So I think this year, you know, I've really grown my creativity.
Yes.
So
I think what
grateful
you
for
did
that.
is you channeled.
Yeah.
You channeled that energy. So
Mhm.
there's no real such thing as negative and positive, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you channeled that energy and you transmuted it actually
Yes.
into something very positive for yourself
Totally.
to release,
Totally.
right? To purge. For me, I know, I have gone through a major change and upgrade in gifts. I feel like, and I'm still getting used to it. I've always been claircognizant and clairsentient. So claircognizant is that like knowing, sentient is that feeling, touch, right? Audient, I've been clairaudient, which is your hearing. I feel like clairvoyance is really coming in, which is where you see and you know and you can see things. And also some mediumship. And so it's all kind of all coming together. And I think that also has to do with the energy that I surround myself in, that I keep myself in. It's also a lot of grounding and a lot of alignment. And so that's really helped me not only hone in my gifts and make them stronger, but then I've also been able to create like these tools
Yeah.
for people, like in guided healing meditations and mantras to help them, people that want to protect their own energy and protect their connections and their unions, etc.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been a lot of because if honestly, if we weren't in lockdown, I'd be out and about like shopping and gym
Uh-huh.
and all this stuff, and I wouldn't have
Totally.
had this time to really kind of sit, be introspective,
Uh-huh.
channel in the gifts, right? Kind of like you, right? So you're
Totally.
channeling in, you're inspired by your music, and you're like if you were out and about, you'd be out with your friends, you'd be in college,
Exactly.
you'd do all this stuff. But this was a real opportunity to like sit, connect to source,
Totally.
right? And develop. And I really do feel like that this lockdown doesn't really feel, and I know it's been uncomfortable for many, but I would say it didn't feel like a lockdown. It really felt like a little bit of a timeout to take care of yourself, to reconnect with yourself, to then reconnect with others, to reconnect with source.
Totally.
I can't tell you how many times people have probably prayed to God or the universe or somebody connected to some outside energy because they are needing assistance. Right? So I just feel like there is a major awakening that has occurred in 2020. And so I'm really excited about now how this like really shifts into 2021, because I really do feel like there's major new beginnings, because a lot of people, not just us, but like us times millions around the globe have gone through similar things like we have, that have transformed them to raise their vibration, to raise this new earth, right, into love. Because look, when you went through all this stuff, your vibe got lighter, you got happier, right? So that's energy that you're exuding. Same with me. You let go of stuff, your vibe gets higher, you're sending love, you're raising the earth. So as we're all going through and transmuting these experiences and healing and awakening and ascending, we're raising this new earth. So it'll be very interesting to see how this new earth continues to get uplifted into the following year.
Right. I've been hearing that all year. Like, spiritual people have been saying.
Spiritual people? You mean like me?
The spiritual community has been saying that 2020 is all about raising the vibration of the earth, right? Well, that's only proven to be true.
Right.
So many people have gone through transformations this year.
I know.
And 2021 is just going to be like a whole new chapter for the world.
Yes. I'm so excited. I am. I feel like this has been a year of preparation. And now we're ready to apply this into whatever we have been preparing ourselves for. I really do. So with that, we're going to say happy holidays, happy new year, and we're sending each and every one of you all of our love and good wishes. And thank you for joining. If you want to book your own personal session, coaching, reading, or healing session with me, go to queenoflight1111.com. Bye, everybody.